Alright guys, in today's video we have more PS5 news and info to go over and discuss, starting with an interview with Jim Ryan where he talks about some of the biggest PlayStation 5 exclusive games and how they're going to be coming sooner rather than later. Compared to past generations, you have to wait at least a couple of years before you get some of those big games. So I think that's worth pointing out here. He talks more about the pricing of the PlayStation 5. We're also talking about PS5 versus Xbox Series X sales numbers once again, because it seems that the PlayStation 5 has dominated the charts for the month of November. We're talking a little bit about Astro's Playroom and whether or not we're going to see some type of follow-up. And finally, we're going over some comments that come from THQ Nordic about the Xbox Series S in particular, and whether or not they feel as though the market is actually going to adopt this dual console model. So before we get into it, if you could do me a big favor, hit the like button to help the video out, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and I do want to let you know that tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be doing the next episode of Press X Podcast. So feel free to tune in and hang out. It's going to be a good time as always. But starting here with the first topic, Jim Ryan talked a little bit about the pricing of the digital edition for the PlayStation 5, and then he also talked about some of the big games that are coming very soon. So it says the price of $399 for the digital edition and $499 for the Blu-ray edition certainly helped in making Sony's next-gen console launch the greatest yet in terms of sales. So this comes via an interview from Edge magazine. It's issue 352, so the January 2021 edition of the magazine, and this is what he had to say about the pricing of the PlayStation 5. We fixed on our product lineup late last year. Our preferred pricing was determined early in this calendar year, pre-lockdown, and we just got on and executed with what we wanted to do. No, it didn't change. We've been able to launch the PlayStation 5 at $399 with all of the horsepower and the feature set that the console has at the same price we launched the PS4 back in 2013. That was important for us, and we're very happy that we've been able to do that. $399 worked very well for us last time around, and we'd like it to work very well for us this time around too. After talking about the PS5 price, Jim Ryan highlighted that after what we called the best PlayStation launch lineup ever, the PS5 will also get big titles much earlier than the PS4 did, starting next year. The other thing I'd say is that the 2021 lineup is likewise of a different level than we've ever seen before. People rightly point back at our first-party Worldwide Studios games as being one of the defining things about the PS4 generation, but often less remarked upon is the fact that the really great first-party games came in the second part of the cycle, and we will have games of that quality, but we're going to have them earlier in the cycle this time around. It's an interesting comment from Jim Ryan, as Microsoft counterpart Phil Spencer made it a point to note that the 2021 holiday lineup will be more important than this year's. So it's pretty clear that there is a similar approach for both Sony and Microsoft when it comes to the games lineup in 2021. Yes, what Phil Spencer said is true. The lineup in 2021 is certainly more important than a launch lineup, but still, I don't think that makes up for the fact that Microsoft didn't have a launch lineup compared to what Sony was offering. But this is really exciting because we know that Sony is going to have a very strong 2021. We talk about it all the time, but I think what's going to be really interesting is looking beyond 2021. We're already looking at some of the highest quality games potentially launching as soon as next year. You're looking at Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Horizon Forbidden West, and God of War Ragnarok, just to name a few. So it's going to be very interesting to see just how much more we get going into 2022 and beyond. So just wanted to kind of run down what Jim Ryan had to say here about the pricing of the PS5 as well as some of the games. But moving right along, we are talking about sales numbers. Sony may well be struggling to meet demand for the PlayStation 5, but this didn't stop the console from topping the UK charts last month. According to Games Industry, the new console beat both the Xbox Series X and the Nintendo Switch. In total, 900,000 consoles were sold in the UK between November 1st and November 28th. The majority were PlayStation 5 consoles. This meant Nintendo Switch settled for the runner-up spot for only the third time in the last 2 years. Such high sales numbers are really to be expected for a month in which two new consoles are launched. November 2020 was a more successful month than November 2013 for revenue generated by console sales. The latter was when the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One both launched. Of course, there was a 61.4% increase in the number of console accessories sold too. Between October 25th and November 21st, players purchased 1.25 million accessories, with PlayStation dominating the top 10. The top 10 selling accessories during this period was the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller. The Pulse 3D headset took second place. Third spot fell on the PlayStation 4 DualShock controller, which had topped the chart the previous month. Other accessories in the top 10 were the PS5 media remote, and in seventh place, that was actually in the 7th place, and the DualSense charging station in 8th place. The PS5 HD camera just missed out on the top 10 spot by placing at number 11. So I thought this was kind of interesting to highlight. We talked about how the PS5 broke sales records in the UK recently, but it also just dominated the market entirely, not only with console sales, but clearly with accessories as well. So there you go. But moving on here, we're talking more about Astro's Playroom. This is a game that came packed in with the PS5, and I'm happy to let everybody know that my first official Platinum trophy on the PlayStation 5 is Astro's Playroom. It's an incredible game, really enjoyable. It's currently sitting at an 82 on Metacritic, and people now want to know, will we be seeing Astro again? Will we get some type of follow-up, a standalone game, DLC of some sort, or is it just something that Sony's only going to kind of associate with the launch of new hardware at this point? But we actually have the Japan studio boss, Nicholas Dowsett. He's actually talking to Edge Magazine and letting us know what exactly we can expect. So he said, at this moment in time, there's no plan for an extension of Astro's Playroom, but I think it's going to come down to the popularity of the game. When he was asked about whether or not there's going to be some type of follow-up, so far we've heard a lot from the media, and it's been very positive, and we're really, really happy. But a lot of it is going to come down to the consumer experience. So he goes on to say, I think we need to hear from them too, and it's going to happen post-launch once the console's in the hands of consumers. But if the character has popularity, and if it proves that people are really having fun, an extension or sequel could be one avenue to follow. But at the same time, in Team Asobi, we're always trying to come up with new ideas from technology, and so there's a lot of things we want to try and do around the controller. And as we make these prototypes, if one of them turns out to be a game idea in its own right, it could end up being a new direction that we take, and we'll run with it. So it could be one or the other, but at this moment in time, I don't really know. So this is, I think, worth noting, because again, this is something that people are kind of latching onto, that being Astro's Playroom. And I think the general consensus right now is Sony needs to make a standalone game starring Astro, because Playroom was just so good. And just to imagine what a full-blown game could be like, I mean, I think Astro at this point is looked at as one of the mascots for PlayStation now. And, I think he does deserve his own game. But as he's saying here, it really comes down to just how popular it ends up being. I'm sure they're going to be able to look at the metrics of how many people are actually, who buy PlayStation 5s are actually playing this game, how many people are actually completing it, how many people are, trying to platinum it and whatnot. Just general interaction. I think that's really going to determine, the demand for a full-blown game. So hopefully it does happen, because I think it would be great. But finishing up this video, we're talking a little bit about the Xbox Series S, or more specifically the dual console model, because a THQ Nordic executive has talked recently about this. It says someone else who is skeptical of the viability is Reinhard Hollis. I don't know if I'm pronouncing their name correctly, but they are an executive producer on Gunfire Games. This is what he had to say. He said, I understand the reasoning behind it. From a development perspective, it's always better to just focus on one specification. I'm not sure if the market will adopt this model of having two next-gen consoles. Something else that he said is that he's very impressed with the PlayStation 5's SSD, and it's currently faster than anything else on the market. According to this individual, the PS5's SSD is the true advancement of the new console generation. This is a true advancement of the generation, he said. Loading times can take so long and be troublesome to optimize for better loading times. I'm convinced this is a great push. So apologies for my not so great reading of that article there, but I think this information is interesting because we have a developer who is, expressing skepticism of the Series S model. And I think that's very understandable. We've seen multiple developers at this point in time kind of question whether or not the Series S is really going to be beneficial in the long run. I mean, it's certainly beneficial for the consumer being able to gain access to next gen, in quotations here, for as little as $300, but it's just crazy to me that, we're still kind of having these conversations, and you can clearly tell that developers are still hesitant. But on top of that, he also talks about the PlayStation 5 SSD, and in his opinion, from a developer's perspective, what Sony is doing with the SSD is really the true great push, the big push forward. And I just think it's interesting because even after the PS5 is out now, we're still hearing developers praise this console, and we're already starting to see proof that Sony really did some great things with this console. And yeah, it will be interesting in the long run to see what happens with the Series S. I have to say, with a lot of the games that have been broken down and, kind of talked about on Digital Foundry, it really seems like the Series S is struggling out of the gate with some things. So, we'll see. We'll see how it all pans out in the end. But that does it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. If you did, leave it a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.